Hello and welcome to the All About Ability podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Kyle Financial and Strathclyde House Buyers. Kyle Financial are proud supporters of local communities and specialise in helping you protect what matters most. For your family, your lifestyle and even your income, they have it covered. Kyle Financial are now offering free wills, regardless of whether or not you need any other service. Go check them out on their website, www.kyle-financial.co.uk, or check them out on Facebook, Twitter or even Instagram. Strathclyde House Buyers are a local property solutions company who specialise in helping people sell their property quickly with no fees. If you or anyone you know are looking for a fast, stress-free sale, check them out on their website www.strathclydehousebuyers.com, on Facebook or on Instagram.
Ladies, gents, so little welcome you to the main event. The card that comes out smelling of roses, they never made a cent. They can't afford to pay the rent.
Listen, I really appreciate you doing this, man. It's really cool. I'm big fan, and the fact that we're going to fight each other on Saturday is.
Are you live in Scotland, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm Glasgow, so I'm coming through.
Glasgow now, right?
Yeah, I'm travelling tomorrow on the ferry, and then I'll be there Thursday night, and then
that's
the
cool.
hotel. But
so you go, and then you have to drive up to Galway, right?
Yeah. So we're getting the ferry from Glasgow. And then we'll need to drive up the whole way. So yeah.
And where are you taking the ferry to? Dublin or Belfast?
I think it's Dublin. I think we're going Dublin. And
right. Okay.
But yeah, I've been there a couple of times recently, so it's exciting the fact that I'm actually going there to have a boxing match. You know, it'll be a fun experience. And I'm glad you were able to. Well, that you chose to fight me. I mean, that's crazy, but.
Yeah, it should be good. It should be good fun, to be honest. Here, are you doing this already? Is this recording?
Yeah, so we just started recording there. So I'll introduce you. So I'm here today with Artem Lobov, the Russian Hammer.
Perfect.
And
yeah, perfect. Because even all this that we're talking about, this could be part of the podcast, you know.
Yeah. But that's the thing is, I like to just go into it and start talking because that's what people like to hear. They like to hear the conversation, not just a bog standard interview, you know. And
I'm all for it, so let's do it. Well,
there's definitely a lot to talk about. You know, you're obviously taking part in the big event on Saturday, and something I wanted to touch on at the start was how did you get involved with Stevo? How do you know Stevo Timothy, and how did you get involved in this event?
To be honest with you, I think I just seen it on Twitter first. You know, seeing him announce he was fighting Paddy. You know, so I was like, okay, what's going on here? Kind of had a little look at it. I guess retweeted it or whatever, and then we started talking a little bit about him. I guess on Twitter, so I followed him back. So you know, he sent me a few texts. You know, just asking, could he maybe come up and train with me? I said, yeah, of course. And I would love to, you know, give you a handout. You know, I'm not really a great coach. You know, I'll be honest with you, but I can definitely give you a few pointers. And, you know, it'll probably be good for a bit of publicity and, you know, spreading the word about this event, you know, because this is exactly what we need, you know. So that's exactly how it went down. And then when he came up to me for training, we just got chatting a little bit more, and you know, we got each other a little bit more. I guess we did the training session, and I said to him, look, we need more help with, you know, spreading the word about this. You know, I'm sure Paddy Holohan, you know, he's the kind of guy that will always, you know, help people out. I know for a fact that he wants to get involved. You know, he would want to help you and would want to get involved. You know, he wouldn't just walk past this. You know, he's not that kind of guy. So I was like, sure, straight away that Paddy would say yes. So I said all this to him, but I said, look, do you want to train with Paddy first? And he said, yeah, I would love to, of course, do a session with him. And then as we were talking about that between me and him, he mentions to me, oh, do you want to fight Paddy on the night? So everything just started kind of escalating. I went from just seeing it on Twitter to suddenly now, you know, kind of training him and then setting up another training session. And now I'm fighting myself at the event already. And I was like, yeah, of course, you know, why not? You know, this is a great event. You know, I could see the passion in Stevo, you know, that he's very passionate about it. It's a great cause, you know, it's something that needed to, you know, the word about something needs to be spread, you know, people need to know more. And obviously the main thing, of course, raising the money needed for all the things that I required for the charity, you know, to be able to help people more. So yeah, just like that, I was suddenly, in a fight, and I agreed, to be honest, before kind of double checking with Paddy all the dates and everything. I just sort of agreed on behalf of Paddy because I knew he would say yes, and then it turned out that actually the same day he is away with the Irish IMF team, and the championships. The European Championships, MMA. So obviously he was already committed to that, and there was no way he could miss that. He would be letting a lot of people down. So we changed it up, and now you get to be the lucky one, Kieran.
Oh man, it's very odd interviewing someone when you know you're about to be fighting them in a couple of days, especially when there's someone like you who's a very experienced fighter, and it's for me, being able to do this, being a fan of you is quite a surreal opportunity, and you've obviously been fighting for a long time. You've had a lot of fights and a lot of different versions of fighting. Bare knuckle boxing was your most recent one, and a really impressive one. And it made me think, like, you've been fighting with so many different versions of it. What is actually your favourite version of fighting? Boxing, MMA, bare knuckle boxing?
I'll be honest with you. I think for just overall, I think I love MMA, and the reason being, to me, because it is more complete. It's like when people now like to talk about a boxer versus a karate guy, or now it's like MMA guys crossing into the boxing, or some of the boxers moving into the MMA. All this is cool to see, but the one important thing for me when I see all this is that whenever it's an MMA guy fighting, for basically, let's say, a boxer to get an advantage, you have to say, okay, you can't use your legs, and you can't grapple, and you can't wrestle. Then if you face a judo guy, let's say, he says, oh, you can't go down for the takedowns on the legs, or you can't punch. If it's this guy, it's always some issue with everybody, except when it's the MMA guy. When it's the MMA guy, he is the only one that doesn't care. All these other guys have to tell the MMA guy what he's not allowed to do in order to participate in their sport. But an MMA guy doesn't have to limit no one. Come at me. You want to come at me with just judo? Well, let's go. You ready to include more? You want to do judo and boxing? Let's do it. You want to do judo, boxing, and karate? Let's do it. You want to do everything all together as MMA? Let's do it, So that, to me, that is something that makes me always love MMA more than anything. Having said that, now, for entertainment value, just watching it as a fan, like when you come into a show and you want to see some great fights, I think nothing compares to bare knuckle. I honestly don't think anything kind of quite compares to it. It's just, and it's the way it is designed for entertainment, It is just 2-minute rounds, only 5 of them. No gloves. Is just pure excitement. Like you see, for example, when you watch smaller boxers compete, like when you go like really lightweight, 60 kilos or whatever, around that mark and below. When it's boxers, people don't like to watch those weights. Why? Because with the gloves, they can't really do too much damage to each other. So yes, the technique is beautiful. The speed is crazy, but there's no damage. And people, the reality of it, they want to see blood, They want to see battle. They want to see blood everywhere, cuts, all of that. Now, when you take away the gloves and you put the same weight guys into a bare knuckle fight, everything changes completely. Because number one, because they've got such great engines and the volume of shots, you're just seeing both guys get cut up in seconds. They literally left in ribbons, blood everywhere. It makes it, actually, the smaller guys are the most exciting ones to watch in bare knuckle.
It's a really interesting point.
For that reason, I love bare knuckle.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. Because there's been a lot of debate about, I've heard people with big platforms like Joe Rogan and stuff say that they should maybe look at having bare knuckle in UFC and have no gloves. A lot of people have said that what's the point in having gloves in the UFC if you're going to be fighting like that anyway? What's your stance on that? Do you think they should keep it, or do you think they should just get rid of them?
It's a tough question, to be honest, because there's a number of points to consider, and it's a very, very tricky one, because hard to kind of, I don't even know which one is the right thing to do, if I'm 100% honest. But some of the things that I'm looking at, For example, one of the issues that there has been in the UFC is the eye pokes. And there's only one thing that can solve that, and this is the gloves. If you produce specifically designed gloves, like for example in Bellator, the gloves are designed slightly different, and suddenly you cannot really have when you relax your hand, your fingers aren't straight no more. They're a little bit bent like this, and there's significantly less amount of eye pokes in Bellator. So for that reason, for example, I kind of want to see the gloves, but I want to see those better designed gloves in the UFC also, so that there are no eye pokes. Now, there's another reason, let's say, to consider, let's say, damage, right? With the glove on, especially an MMA glove on, you can 100% do more damage to the head than you can with bare knuckle. Because bare knuckle, yes, you will get cut up more. There's going to be a lot more cuts, but in terms of actual damage to the head, it's less, especially when your hands get sweaty and covered in blood. Mm-hmm. Like my first fight with Jason Knight, some of the shots, my hand would just open up on impact. I wasn't even able to keep the fist because it just was so sleepy and you're so tired. But then again, it's MMA, there's punches with the gloves, but then there's elbows, there's knees to the head, there's shins to the head. So I'm not sure that's a valid argument,
It's a very complex discussion. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of different areas to consider.
There's a lot to it. Like I said, I don't really know the exact answer, which is the best way, But probably I'm kind of leaning towards the gloves that will allow you not poke people in the face, in the eyes. Because that has been a huge, huge problem in the UFC. And it's very dangerous, extremely dangerous. There's people, lose eye. People have lost eyes. Dustin, for example, he lost his eye. I'm not sure if it was over an eye poke or what the story is there. Yeah. But, you can definitely lose an eye. And it's a very easy to solve solution. You just need to slightly better design gloves, and that's it. And that's gone. So I don't actually know why they haven't done it still.
Well, exactly. Hopefully that's something the UFC have looked into for the future. But speaking of areas in MMA that's controversial or been discussed, one of them is weight cuts, and you've actually competed in 3 different weight divisions, the same as McGregor and people like that. And there's, when people jump up weight divisions, there's a lot of, there seems to be more of that now than there was before. How difficult is it actually to do, and what difference did that make to you as a fighter when you're jumping up different weights?
Obviously, it depends on a number of reasons. Of course, if somebody's doing it professionally with, proper supervision, that makes it easier. Also, it varies from person to person. I guess your genes and everything, what sort of person you are. And, sometimes, dropping weight can work well for some, but then the opposite can be well for others. I've seen this, many times. For example, Jose Aldo now dropped to bantamweight and he seems to be picking up steam, again. So it's worked out for him well. But for example, Anthony Johnson, before he was trying to fight at welterweight, and it was absolutely terrible for him. He was a boring fighter at welterweight and he was struggling. He was, always worried about making weight. He just couldn't relax. He couldn't let his hands go. He was still a good fighter, but just not working out for him. And as a result, he got cut from the UFC and then just said, forget this weight cutting, moved up to heavyweight and actually started knocking guys out. And now he's at light heavyweight, which I think is probably the perfect weight for him. And he's looking incredible. He's an absolute beast, knocking guys left, right, and center. And the funny thing as well, he's not small at light heavyweight. He's actually a big guy. So I don't really know how he was making welter. But, that's just to show kind of that it works out well for some people and not so well for others, So, but it is definitely a difficult thing to do, whether you're moving up on the weight or whether you're moving down the weight. To do it properly is very difficult because it's not really just about making weight. It's about performing at that weight. You can make the weight. That's one thing. That's only a small part of the battle. But then you have to rehydrate properly and then perform, So that's the big kind of issue. Ideally, you don't want weight cuts because it is already dangerous enough for us, the fighting. And if you're actually cutting weight, that makes it a bit more dangerous. Like, for example, your brain, has very little protection. It is covered in somewhat liquid, kind of like water. And obviously when you dehydrate it, that protection is no longer there. or at least it is less there. You know, it's not as protected as it would have been when you're fully hydrated. So that is, of course, an issue, you know. And yeah, I mean, ideally, you don't want the weight cuts. You just want people to kind of, you know, fight at their natural weight.
Could you see them adding in more weight divisions?
Yeah, that's probably one of the ways to solve it. But then again, like, for example, that's another thing as well I wanted to actually touch on here, because when they talk about like moving weight class in boxing, you know, somebody's a, you know, champion across 5 weight classes. I mean, that's still, of course, very impressive. But if you're talking that in MMA terms, that's probably 2 weight classes. You know, the weight class in MMA, the jumps are much, much bigger. And the biggest one is probably when you go from 155 to 170. So you most certainly need to add a weight class there. That needs to happen as soon as possible, because it's just too big of a jump. You know, and somebody that should be competing at 165, you know, let's say like a big enough 165er, he struggles, you know, because he's too small at 170 and he's way too big to make 155. So we definitely need to add that weight class. You know, whether we need more weight classes, that's another conversation to be had. But we definitely 100% need 165. We're way, you know, past on that. It needs to happen. The sport is way too advanced right now, you know, and too mainstream. It's mainstream sport now. MMA is, UFC is, you know, anyway. And we need to add that weight class. There's no question about that.
I mean, definitely, because you can see from other fighters like how they talk about the actual feeling better at 170. You know, feeling that they're not having to dehydrate themselves as much and put themselves through that, but they're also not maybe able to perform as much because they're not getting as much power as they would have at 165. Or, I mean, look at McGregor. He was knocking people out 145 all the time, and then you see him go up to 170, and it's like, still got the same movement, still got the same skill, but it's not as easy to knock out Nate Diaz as it is, you know.
Well, yeah, well, there has to be said there that as well at 170 it was a tough challenge with Nate Diaz. You know, the guy has never been knocked out. Yeah. I mean, even his one TKO loss, and the ref jumped in and stopped it, but he wasn't even knocked out even then. So that is a task in itself, you know. Yeah. It's regardless of the weight class. Because I do think that there's many other guys at 170 that Conor, you know, would have the power to knock out, you know, because it's not even just about the pure power, you know. The thing about Conor's knockouts was the timing, you know, and the distance control. You know, he was able to catch guys kind of mid their shots, you know, when they're sort of committed to their own shot, all the kinetic energy of their own shot comes with it, and then Conor just missed them as they're coming in, and you know, that makes the shot so devastating and a knockout, you know, blow. So that's why when you knock people out that way, it transfers well across the weight classes. You know, if you're just like a power guy, you know, somebody that, you know, just comes in and literally aggressively goes forward without actually trying to catch the guy mid-shot like Conor does in his counter punches. If you're just power guy, you know, then yes, you need your raw power. And when that sort of fighter moves up a weight class, often, you know, it could be that he leaves the power behind, that the power that he has now, not that he leaves it behind, but it's not enough to deal with the bigger guys. But when you're a guy that knocks guys out like Conor does, then that the cross weight class is a lot better.
Well, yeah, I take it that really well. I mean, looking at the current landscape of MMA, let's talk about what's going on at the moment. There's a lot of big fights happening, a lot of big across all the weight divisions, and a lot of big stars coming about. We've got the heavyweight fight with Ngannou that looks like it's going to be one of the biggest fights they've ever done. And then you look at, you know, after what happened with the Poirier and Conor fight, what do you see? Who do you see as one of the next big star in MMA?
Well, to be honest, now the UFC have done a very good job, you know, at the brand that, you know, is just, there is not really just the one star, you know. Obviously, kind of Conor stands out from all the guys. He was the guy that kind of helped, you know, UFC achieve that status in many ways. But, you know, just taking him out of the equation, when you look at the landscape now, there are many, you know, many very very, very solid, fighters that people tune in to watch, It's gone mainstream, like I said, like Masvidal obviously is a big one. Darren Till was there fighting, now Derek Brunson, the guy that he fought, he is going to be, a breakout. Adesanya, Ngannou. There's literally, the list is very, very big, the list goes on. They've done a great job at now at building this brand now, and this is very good to see, and it's needed that, when before there wasn't really that many. There was just kind of Conor, and the rest was not on that level, and now they sort of diversified their assets, I guess, and across many fighters, and they build this big brand now, Any card you look at, whether it's the pay-per-view or free card, it's always a great card. They've managed to build not just the stars, but everybody, through many different ways, including like the Usman Fighter Show and the Contender Series. They just have so many things going for them. They've literally overtaken the MMA world. There's no question about it. They've done it. Honestly, it's an amazing story and an amazing, company, and they produce unbelievable product. It's just great to watch.
Definitely. I mean, it looks like there's going to be a new big star from Liverpool. I don't know if you've seen Paddy's performance the other night, but what do you make of his chances to succeed in the UFC? He had that fight seemed really competitive, but he came through it and finished really strongly.
Yeah, definitely competitive fight. The guy was game, but some people say about Paddy getting hit a few times. I mean, you get hit in a fight. You know what I mean? It's like complaining that you got wet as a swimmer. You're in a fucking fight. You're competing against another human that, just like you, trains every single day to hit people, to land those shots. You know what I mean? He doesn't train to miss. He trains to land. And so it's only normal, I guess, that, he managed to land some shots, but, being tough is a massive part of this game. Having a chin is a massive part, and that's what the Paddy was able to show that night, that he is tough and he's got a chin, and he came through. And it turned out to be a great fight, great event, and a well-deserved, bonus for him. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch how his career develops. He's definitely an interesting character, and I'm sure he's gonna mess some things up in the UFC and produce some good fights. No doubt about that.
Definitely going to be interesting to see. I wanted to get your thoughts on how do you think the rematch for Usman and Colby is going to play out?
Yeah, it's a good, definitely interesting fight to see. I would have liked to see something like Leon, obviously get his shot. The guy's been, going for it for so long. It's an unbelievable winning streak. So we would love to see him get it. But look, if it's Colby, well then, yes, it's a good fight to watch. It's the first fight was very competitive. I know he got finished. He got stopped, but I still think it was a competitive fight, and I have no doubt that this one is going to be competitive also. Also that fight is so emotionally charged that it can go. One wrong thing can go badly for the other guy. You never know, because the arena is going to be so emotionally charged, and suddenly, let's say you get hit, and then the crowd starts roaring, and all the disturbance energy is in the air, and that could be a downfall, or it could really give somebody put some wind in their sails. It can make you or break you. So when it's a fight like that, it's very hard to just look at the skill set of both guys. Both guys are very good wrestlers, tough fighters, but interesting fight. I don't even want to give a prediction on this one. But I know this one is going to be good. To me, when I seen this one announced, for some reason, I was still like, I want to see this one. It's going to be interesting, to see. To really build a fight, it has to be a fight that the fans care about. And for example, I care about this fight. I care about watching this fight.
Yeah.
When it's a fight that people care about, it's a great fight to make. Every time. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the fans. You want people to tune in. You want people to watch. So.
Well, I mean, there are definitely two that will take it all the way, and it's going to be a proper war. There's a lot more to touch on, but I wanted to go back on what you were talking about COVID there, because it's been particularly bad in Ireland for quite a long time. It seems like there's still heavy restrictions. How difficult has it been to keep training and keep your routine going?
Well, I mean, training, to be honest, training has been the only kind of getaway for people, I guess, those that do train, and those that don't train, I recommend they do it, especially in this sort of times. If you can find a little time to train in your garden even, or anything, go for a run or whatever you can do. That's a big thing. Just getting out there and get a bit of fresh air, or whatever you can do. Basically, it's been big. So to me, training is not that it's been difficult to train, although obviously there were limitations. You couldn't have training partners at certain points. But still, at least training for me was the one ray of sunshine, sort of, in those great days in the lockdown.
I mean,
but yeah, we've had the longest one, I think, out of all the countries in the world. We've had the longest one. It's been rough.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you how important training is outside of competition, just as a lifestyle, and how it can keep your mental health and physically good during a hard time like that. So
100%. Even a walk outside, even a run, anything. Just get your mind off, staring at your four walls. Just get out there and get a bit of fresh air, and that's it. A bit of exercise. Can't beat that.
Exactly. So to go back to what we were talking about before, there's been a lot of talk about coaching in MMA and what the do's and don'ts are of that, and like sparring and things like that. Should you spar more? Should you spar less? Because it seems to be like an open debate. And I've been thinking about, when people talk about coaches, you're obviously coached by John Kavanagh, and I wondered what your thoughts are. Where does he rank in the discussion of how good coaches are, how good it actually is, John?
Well, for me, he is obviously the number one coach in the world. He made a fighter out of me, so to me, he's the number one. But I think this is another one that, it's going to be different for different people, because I guess for somebody to be the right coach for you, you also have to obviously connect with the person, on a personal level also. It cannot be just about the coaching, it cannot be just about the material that the coach, although that is, of course, one of the main factors also. Yeah. It has to be a combination of those. And as well, for me, how can I compare, let's say, my coach to another coach that I haven't trained with? If he didn't coach me, how can you really, compare? I always, for me, it's the same whenever I hear people talk about language. Oh, I don't like that language. When you don't speak, do you speak the language? No. So how the fuck can you tell whether you like or you don't like the language when you can't say a word of it? In order to like or not like a language, you have to understand it. You have to see all the flair of the language, because there's different variations and different things that the language can produce. A certain language can produce, and for you to really know whether you like it or not, you have to know those things, and you have to be able to speak the language. And I can give you 100% that when you actually fully learn a language and you learn everything and you are fluent in it, there's no way you're not going to like a language. You're going to love that language, because you're going to see the differences of that language to others. You're going to see its limitations. You're going to see its advantages in comparison to other languages. So come back to your question. I'm not able to tell you whether the other coach is good or bad if I haven't really trained with him. So for me, John is the best, and he's done a lot for me, and he made me a fighter. So he's the number one MMA coach for me.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally see what you're saying. So what is it that gave you that connection with John to begin with? Like, when you say that the connection with the coach is important, what connected you and John, and what made you think he's going to be the right coach for me through this?
Yeah, so for me it was, it's a little bit of luck, I guess. And that's why I always say, because people always say, oh, there's no luck. And that's true. For the most part, there's no luck. But you need a tiny bit of luck in this life, You need a tiny bit, and it has to happen for you. And I think that I did have that luck, because what are the chances that a little kid that was born in Soviet Union, would travel across, and Ireland is not a big country, and the world is very big, and I could have been anywhere, but somehow I ended up in Ireland, and somehow it happens that in this tiny nation, people are absolute animals when it comes to fighting, and there is this world-class coach coaching MMA there, and I'm going to end up there, So that's the, I guess, the luck part, The chances of that happening, I don't know, they're very, very slim, but somehow it happened, and I ended up there. So that's the luck part. But in terms of why, how and me, John, kind of connected, well, I started pretty late, and I was 21 when I got into MMA. I was in college, and I just saw a little ad on the wall, saying, "Would you like to try self-defense?" And I went down to the gym and started training. This was not SBG yet. It was John's student that coached there. His name was Phil. He lives in Australia now. So I started a little gym in another gym on Camden Street. The gym was called Raw. Now it's a much bigger gym, but at that time, Raw gym was absolutely tiny, very, very small. And this guy rented the tiny little room upstairs from them. So I started training with him, and I literally, after 2 weeks of training, I was like, man, I'm ready to fight. I want to fight. And I kept annoying him about a fight, and he was like, no, what fight? Are you crazy? You're only training 2 weeks. But I was like, I wouldn't stop. I kept annoying him. I was like, look, I just want to fight. I want to try it. I want to do it. He described, I remember, MMA league for me. Back in the day, we had an MMA league here where there's no punches allowed to the head. It's only like body strikes. It's more like a grappling competition. And he described that to me because he had done a few fights of that. And I was like, no, that's not what I want to do, man. And obviously thinking back, I should have fucking done that and got some experience. But with my, Soviet Union head, I'm like, no, I want to fight. I want to go in and proper fight people. So that's when Phil said to me, Artem, if you are serious about this, you have to go and train with John Kavanagh because he's the proper MMA coach and he can do that for you. So that's how then I ended up in John's gym. And I saw straight away John was a smart guy. I enjoyed the way he taught things. I liked to question him, and I liked that when I questioned him, he never didn't have an answer for me, or never would say, "Oh, don't ask that," or never. He would literally just take me and demonstrate it on me. Like he would make me see that this in fact works, and I would be resisting. I would be fighting 100% back, just to see that does work. So I've challenged him like this on many, many occasions over many, many years, and he never failed me at that. So my trust in his ability grew with each question that he answered for me, and my respect for him grew with each question that he didn't ignore and had an answer for. So that's how my relationship with John was built.
That's brilliant. I mean, you can see the connection that you all have with John and how it's all a very tight-knit group, so it's really cool for me as a fan hearing stories like that. See, when you're talking about your first fight, wanting to fight with low experience and things like that, that's kind of how I feel about fighting you on Saturday. So it's funny how things can come full circle like that.
Well, let me tell you, it ain't gonna go well for you, mate.
Hey, we'll get to that. So that's amazing. And we spoke about how you've fought in all these different versions of fighting, but how wheelchair boxing. Did you ever think that was something you were going to do?
Absolutely, boxing was always at the back of my mind because, to be honest, I'm kind of, I guess, a little bit disappointed that I retired and never had a pro boxing fight because it's always kind of been something that I found the most love for. And now, don't get me wrong, I spent a lot of hours doing jiu-jitsu and I love it as well, and I really respect it, and I have, on many occasions, experienced the effectiveness of it. But boxing has always kind of been my main one that I really, I'm a little bit sad that I didn't get to do it, but.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely fought in a lot of different, areas, and I would say you should be very proud of how you've, what I love about you is you've never said no to a fight, you've always jumped in and you've always went for it, you've always entertained, and a lot of fighters don't have that same sort of bravery, I guess, of just going for it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I guess maybe because I started quite late. I was already like I had a formed adult brain, I guess. When I heard people say like, "Look, I want to fight the best guys. I want to find the toughest challenges." I heard that and I said, "That sounds right. That sounds honorable. That sounds like the thing that you should be doing." So I just did that. I did exactly that. And. Sometimes as well, I guess I saw it, as I always saw it as more of just like a sport or something, it was like a challenge, the way I described it sometimes it was, I would be like, I have my castle, right, and I'm like a knight in a castle, and then the enemy is at the door, and whenever I get a phone call to the fight, that's an enemy at my door, and they're saying, like, are you ready to come out and fight? I'm like, how am I going to tell them, no, I'm not ready, or I'm sick, or I can't make weight, or something else? No, you have to come out and you have to defend your custody. You have to go out and fight. So that's how I always saw it. So that's, I guess, the reason for always accepting fights, for never pulling out of a fight, no matter what the circumstances were, where I was injured or where I was sick, or sometimes didn't even, wasn't training because, let's say, I was sick or injured before and hadn't really picked up the form yet. I'd still say, yes, you want me to fight? Well, then I want to fight you. And I enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed doing it. I loved every second of my career. And I retire satisfied. There's some things that I didn't get to achieve, but I also achieved many things that I didn't think I would in my life. So, yeah, I retire a happy man.
Yeah, you definitely have. And see, having been through all that, what kind of advice would you give a younger fighter coming through?
I mean, just go for it. And to be honest, now when I look at the landscape of the MMA world, it is better suited to help you succeed, to help you not make those mistakes. And like, even for example, the presence of an amateur scene. Like when I was starting out, there was no amateur scene. And there was some amateur fights, which I had a couple, but there was no head strikes on the ground. So I remember, like, I would drop the guy on the feet and I can't finish him. So I was straight away telling my coach, look, I don't want to do this. I want a pro fight straight away. So in my first 12 weeks of fighting, like from the moment I started fighting, in the 12 weeks, I had 3 amateur fights and then finished with a pro fight. So I had 4 fights, 3 amateur and 1 pro. Because I just didn't want to do those rules. Nowadays, there's plenty of amateur competitions. There is international amateur competitions like the IMF. There's the European Championships. There is the World Championships. You get to have a number of fights on the same day. You get to have all those fights. You get to experience fighting in front of a crowd in a much safer environment than it is for a pro fighter, and in an environment that does not affect your potential earnings, your potential future earnings, an environment that does not affect your professional record. It's incredible. This is very, very good. So just that alone, and that is, again, that's all in big part thanks to UFC, for making the sport bigger. And now as well, other promotions, they do their bit as well. It was the UFC that kind of started all this, and they always said the leaders, and they're the ones that move everything forward. But everybody else, Bellator, ACA, all the other promotions, they also, make a big impact now. And as a result, now we have this amazing facilities for amateur guys to develop and grow into brilliant professionals. So I think, everything is good now. From my perspective, as my advice is, go for it. Fear nothing, have fun doing it, enjoy it, just go and put the time in. Don't be lazy. Work hard, don't miss trainings. Go and train. If you have an opportunity, go to other gyms, experience other gyms, spar other guys, do it, but do it safely. Don't forget, always like things like blood tests, extremely important. Brain scans, extremely important. If you're going to be serious about this, you have to get it. Those are just the reality of this situation. You have to get all this. Get as much experience as you can, especially at amateur. You have an opportunity now to have very high level fights at amateur. Fight everybody, especially at amateur. Don't avoid no one. Go for it, experience everything. But again, do it safely. If you fight a tough spar, got a few shots, relax, don't take a fight, don't spar again, make sure you're taking appropriate breaks. You lost the fight or whatever, okay, maybe don't jump into another one straight away. Take some time, work on the mistakes, talk to your coach, fix them, train some more, take a little time off, go back in there, those would be my kind of things of advice, but the main thing, you will get all this if you just find yourself the right gym. And nowadays with social media, with everything out there, it's pretty easy to find a good gym. And if a gym is not good or whatever, something bad happens, stuff about them usually pops up online very quickly, and you get to see that the gym is not good. There's also guys like the McDojo, it's an Instagram page. They expose a lot of fake martial arts, and also they're doing their bit as well. I just want to give them a little shout out there. But yeah, nowadays you go online, you search, you find a good school where they have a proven record. You go there, you talk to the coach, and that's it. Once you're with a good coach, you're with a good team, they'll introduce you to the right nutritionist. They'll introduce you to the right strength and conditioning coach. They'll introduce you to the right physio. That all those have the proven track record of doing things right and helping people become successful, not only in competition, but in their fitness journey. So that's it. Nowadays, honestly, when I look at the landscape, there's obviously room for improvement, but I'm happy what I'm seeing and I'm happy where it's going.
Yeah, there's definitely a better, pathway to the bigger stage and in a safer way, and you've put that really well. So, this was a really good conversation. We covered a lot of good stuff and I really enjoyed it. But there's now another challenge for you coming up, which is a wheelchair boxing match this Saturday against yours truly. And that'll be that'll be a first for me. And it's weird to have interviewed somebody so professionally to know that he's probably going to knock me out in a couple of days. So you've done a lot of fights, but you've never fought in a boxing match in a wheelchair. How much do you think that's going to change, be a different dynamic for you to train in and learn how to actually navigate the chair while trying to punch somebody in the face?
It's very different, to be honest, because I had a go at it with when Stevo was up here in Dublin, training with me. So obviously I tried it and I realized that it's hard because you generate your power through your legs, through your glutes, through engaging that. So it was very difficult for me to generate good power. But Stevo somehow he was able to generate crazy power. I was actually very surprised at the power that he was able to generate, because when he walked in and I saw, he's like skinny guy, and I was like, okay, expecting, decent shot probably, but not expecting that much power. Next thing he goes wallop. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? I had to really tighten up my guard and everything. He was able to produce serious amount of power. But for me, that was the biggest challenge that I saw. It was very, very hard to produce that, to have power. Yeah. And another thing as well is if your reach is limited, like it is mine, it's very hard to reach the other guy, and obviously you're not allowed to stand up, you're not allowed to lean over too much, so that is another issue, it's very, very different to anything I've ever done.
What did you think when Stevo suggested fighting me? Did you know anything about me? What did you think about the idea of taking me on?
Well, me, that's something that I used to never do back in the day. Whenever, they would just send me the name, I would just say yes. That was always me. And I would never, bother with who it is, what it is. You want to fight? It's a yes from me. So it was no different this time, my man. He mentioned to me, Kieran, before he could even tell me your second name, it was a yes from me. Well, and another thing as well, I was kind of thinking of which way I'm going to approach it, but I think because it's only 1 minute rounds and it's only 3 rounds, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going for it, and I'm going to give it everything I've got, and then see what happens.
Well, I don't want you to take it easy on me. I want you to give me everything you can. So that's definitely the way I want you to do it, and I'm ready to get everything. So.
I'm happy to hear that, honestly. Now, I was going to do it anyway, but I'm happy to hear that you don't mind and you agree with that, because I think it's only fair. We have to give people, a fight, a real fight.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done this if I didn't think I was going to be able to go in there and at least, be able to, go for it, I guess, like you said earlier. Your advice to fighters would just go for it, and I'm going to definitely, this is a big opportunity for me, the way I see it, and you're obviously a lot more experience than me, but I'm just going to, like I said before, actually something you said earlier was talking about not knowing about the impact of what people experience in wheelchairs. And I'm 24, so I've been in a wheelchair my whole life through cerebral palsy. And one of the things that's really interesting about it is the whole reason why I started the podcast, it's called All About Ability, but it's more than just a podcast. The point of it was to try and change the perception of the way that disabled people are seen and people in wheelchairs are seen, and show that we can do a lot of things. We can do a lot more things than people realise, and try to say to people, we should have better representation. We should be able to do more things. And I think for me, it's kind of became, I did a challenge in April, but I was doing 1,000k in a month, so that was 40k every day. So I was doing it on the ski erg machine. I don't know if you've the ski erg machine and the rower.
Trust me, I've had my battles with them.
So yeah, I was doing 40k every day for 30 days to raise money for mental health charities and through the Celtic Foundation, and it was something that made me realise, I don't want to just talk about the fact that it's all about ability. I want to be able to show it. So when Stevo said to me, you can fight Artem Lobov, I think a lot of people are going to look at this and think, what is this guy doing? But I don't really, I look at it as like, I've been through a lot of challenges, I've been through a lot of, adversity, so to speak, and I've came through it. So when I fight you on Saturday, I'm not going in there with any fear. I'm just going in there to put on a show for the people that are there, and hopefully it raises enough money to make a difference.
That's brilliant. No, honestly, that's brilliant to hear. And that's what I mean, this is all about, never giving up, overcoming, all odds, overcoming all kinds of adversity, just pushing through no matter what. So when those values are at stake, how can you and me half-ice this fucking fight? How can we half-ice this? We have to go for this. I am going to be boxing the ears of you like there's no tomorrow, Kevin. So get ready. My wheels will be burning and your ears will be burning too, my friend.
Well, that's exciting to me, because I'm excited to show you that I'm not scared of that, and I'm really looking forward to going in and taking all the shots and showing people that people in wheelchairs can be made of some steel and have no fight experience, and go in and fight a legend like you and take it all and just go for it. Like I says, I'm coming from Scotland, and there's been a lot of time put into this, and I want to go there and steal the show. So that's what the plan is, and the fact that we're actually doing this is exciting, but also insane in a lot of ways, and it just kind of, it makes you think about how, I've been thinking the last few days, how did I end up in this situation? But the fact that I have is I'm very grateful for it, and I'm very excited about it, and thank you for doing it.
That's brilliant. No, and honestly, and even like, obviously, just to kind of all the great things that this charity event, in terms of raising the money for charity and all of that, that's great thing. But even just for us, I think personally, looking back on this, this is about making a great memory, something that is going to be great and crazy to look back on, it's going to be a great story to tell friends, to tell your kids, your grandkids, a very unique story. An amazing story, a very happy story, a feel-good story, that me and you will be able to tell, somebody down the line, So honestly, I'm really, really looking forward to this event. I'm really looking forward to, living through this.
Well, this is basically Rocky. This is we add the fight on the Wikipedia.
Yes. Oh yeah. Hey, yes. My Wikipedia has seen everything. I swear that I'm not sure if there's. I'm sure there's like some, crazy famous people that get their Wikipedia changed all the time. But my one has done all kinds of things done to it. But this is one thing that I would like to proudly add to my Wikipedia. This is the fight that I definitely want on my record.
Brilliant. What I was about to say there was, this is the modern day version of Rocky, really. And for me, it's like I'm looking at it and going, this is, you're talking about how you're going to go all out, and that excites me, because it will bring out the best in me, and hopefully I can go and enjoy it, and this will be the first of many for me, and that's the way I've been looking at it. So,
definitely,
I will see you Saturday in the ring, and I'm really looking forward to it, man. But we'll end the podcast there, and listen, I'm a really big fan of yours, and this was really cool for me to do this, and I really appreciate you making the time. Honestly, it's been a pleasure of mine, Kieran. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
thank you so much for accepting the fight against me. I mean, this is such a great thing that, that the event is going to produce. And this is going to raise so much money, as Stevo was saying, which is obviously the main thing. The money will directly help people that need help. But the main thing is going to spread the word about the Wheelchair Association and all the beautiful work that they do. Because sometimes, when you're a person and something like this doesn't really touch you, like, for example, like, even I will take myself as an example, you're just not aware, of the issues that somebody in the wheelchair might be having. And for me, for example, when I live in Ireland, for some reason I feel like, okay, Ireland is a very developed country that, those things will be taken care of. And in my mind, I didn't even know that there was issues. I didn't even know that there was much help needed to people that are struggling, the wheelchair users and all the issues that they're having. I honestly did not know about all those issues. So now that Stevo reached out and he explained all this to me, I'm happy to spread the message further, to hopefully, let people know that this charity exists, that the help is needed, and they're doing beautiful things. And if anybody out there that is able to help them out, whether by spreading the word or making a small donation, this is very much appreciated. Thank you so much to everyone. Tune in on Saturday night and watch me and Kieran go at it.
Look forward to it. And everyone at the Savage Wheelchair Association, the link to the donation will be in the bio. Get as much donations in as you can and bring on Saturday.